A man has been accused of stabbing his beauty queen ex-girlfriend to death after she broke up with him. The brutal murder of a 22-year-old by her ex-boyfriend is an all-too-familiar story. A beautiful young woman's life was cut short by a jealous and controlling man who couldn't handle rejection. This is the story of Kimberly Karen Mota de Oliveira. Kimberly Oliveira was a 22-year-old beauty queen and dental student from the small rural town of Manacor, Brazil. Raised in a modest home by her loving mother Nayla and two caring brothers, Kimberly dreamed big. She hoped to become Miss Brazil one day and launch a modeling career. But Kimberly was also studious. She excelled in school and earned a full scholarship to dental college in the big city of Manaus. Her goal was to graduate, open her own dental practice back home, and provide quality care to the community. Though coming from simple means, Kimberly's was a star on the rise. In 2019, at age 21, she was crowned Miss Manacori after charming the local pageant judges with her beauty, grace, and quick wit on stage. The win buoyed Kimberly's hopes of qualifying for the Miss Amazonas pageant, the final step to Miss Brazil stardom. Kimberly vowed to compete again the following year, determined to manifest her dreams. Around this time, Kimberly relocated to Manaus to attend university. While she missed her tight-knit family, Kimberly's mother and brother Lucas lived in the bustling city to support her. Studying diligently, Kimberly also enjoyed hitting the town on weekends, dancing with friends, and flaunting her glowing skin in trendy outfits. She lit up social media with bikini photos and glamorous shots, showcasing her approachable girl-next-door vibe. Kimberly's promising future seemed wide open until she met Rafael Rodriguez, a predator lurking in the shadows of Manaus's nightlife scene. Their paths first crossed on a fateful evening at a downtown dance club. Rafael, 31, was immediately drawn to Kimberly's beauty and vivacious energy on the dance floor. While flattered by the attention of an older businessman, Kimberly initially brushed off his advances. But Rafael, a systems analyst who had recently relocated to the city from Sao Paulo, was persistent. He showered Kimberly with compliments and free drinks, asking for her phone number before the night ended. Charmed by Rafael's sophistication, Kimberly felt a spark and agreed. In the following days, Rafael poured on the romance with flowers, gifts, and invites to fine restaurants Kimberly had never experienced before. To her friends and family, Rafael seemed like a perfect gentleman, successful, well-dressed, doting on Kimberly like a princess. When he asked her to be his girlfriend, Kimberly felt lucky to have landed such a catch. If only she could have glimpsed the sinister roots beneath Rafael's polished veneer. The first cracks in his facade appeared early in their relationship. Rafael insisted on knowing Kimberly's whereabouts at all times. He grew irrationally jealous if she received a text or call from any other man, and he made her check in constantly, tracking her movements. At first, Kimberly brushed off Rafael's possessive behavior as a sign of devotion, but his volatile reactions to perceived betrayals revealed a darker side. He was controlling and unstable. Still, Kimberly hoped in time his jealousy would fade and their fairy tale would unfold. Instead, Rafael's chokehold on Kimberly tightened. He cut her off from friends and family members, threatening harm if she saw them. Rafael monitored Kimberly's phone and social media accounts, deleting any male contacts. His verbal abuse toward her escalated behind closed doors, belittling Kimberly if she didn't obey his demands. Desperate to avoid Rafael's rage, Kimberly lied about her activities, but she felt herself drowning in his suffocating grip. As days passed, Rafael became more aggressive, and Kimberly's unease shifted to outright fear. She realized she had to escape this toxic relationship before it was too late. In early May 2020, after 2 months of dating Rafael, Kimberly reached her breaking point. The charming older man who had once seemed like a dream come true had morphed into a nightmare, her tormentor. Kimberly confided to her mother Nayla that she wanted out. Her mother, battling breast cancer, feared for her daughter's safety and insisted Kimberly leave him at once. They agreed Kimberly would break up with Rafael in person with a friend present, while her uncle William stood by in case of trouble. On May 10th, Kimberly steeled her nerves for the looming confrontation. Rafael had awakened in a foul mood, but Kimberly put on a happy face and wished her mother a happy Mother's Day over text. She then went jogging with Rafael and friends in an attempt to avoid losing his temper. But privately, Kimberly knew this would be her last day under Rafael's crushing hold. Around 7:30 p.m., with her friend Sophia by her side, Kimberly finally worked up the courage to end the relationship that had turned toxic. Her hands shook thinking about Rafael's potential reaction, but she refused to back down. Kimberly asked her Uncle William not to lock the front door of the apartment that night, hoping Raphael would spare them all and simply walk away. But when Kimberly's mother and Sophia tried contacting her the next day, their texts and calls went unanswered. Sick with worry, they rushed to the apartment only to find it empty. Kimberly had vanished without a trace. Dread mounting, Uncle William called police to report her missing on May 11th, praying they weren't too late. The following morning, authorities notified the family the worst imaginable news. Kimberly's lifeless body had been found brutally stabbed to death inside Raphael's apartment. When police broke down Raphael's door, they found her lifeless remains, partially unclothed and covered in blood from 7 savage knife wounds. Raphael was nowhere to be found, but the murder weapon sat in plain sight, a kitchen knife on the balcony with only his fingerprints. Just like that, Raphael went from a missing person to the prime suspect in Kimberly's murder. As police launched a desperate manhunt, they focused on one goal: catching Raphael before he could flee the country and evade justice forever. However, surveillance footage captured him calmly leaving the building alone shortly after 1 a.m. on the night of the murder. Enraged by this sight, Kimberly's family demanded justice. How could he so casually stroll along while her mutilated body lay nearby? Kimberly's photo circulated on Brazilian media as authorities launched a nationwide manhunt for Raphael. Police suspected the murder was a crime of passion, triggered by Kimberly attempting to leave the relationship. But nothing could justify Raphael's savage butchering of the beautiful young woman who had once loved him. As Kimberly's mother, Nayla, grieved the unimaginable loss of her only daughter, the dragnet tightened around Raphael. The first break came on May 13th, when Raphael's crashed car turned up abandoned nearly 600 kilometers outside Manaus. He had clearly been driving recklessly to escape the city as fast as possible. Security footage traced his route, heading north towards the Venezuelan border. If he made it across, he could disappear into another country and live freely under a new identity. But the police were determined not to let that happen. Using Raphael's bank and phone records, investigators tracked him to a rural, wooded area near the border. He had taken refuge in a makeshift hut and paid local youths to stand guard around him, ensuring no one approached his hideout. These young men knew nothing of Raphael's crimes or that he was a wanted murderer. To them, he was just a guy who needed help, lying low. But when police vehicles rolled up on May 15th, a tense standoff ensued. Refusing to hand over their paying client, Raphael's guards exchanged gunfire with the cops. At one point, it seemed Raphael might slip away in the chaos and confusion, but finally, facing overwhelming force, his protectors realized it was useless. No amount of money was worth risking their lives over this stranger's troubles.
Lembram dessa jovem que o meu querido vai colocar? Agora não, agora já é o assassino. Esse aí já é o criminoso que foi preso e acabou confessando tudo à polícia. Ele contou os detalhes de como matou a jovem de apenas 22 anos. O motivo do ataque teria sido crise de ciúmes após ver supostas conversas no celular da moça. O Dalisson chega agora direto da redação contando tudo para nós. E o Brasil inteiro vai ficar sabendo.
Raphael's guards waved the white flag, surrendering to police and granting access to the hut where the alleged killer was hiding. After an intense 6-day manhunt across Brazil, the search was over. Raphael was placed under arrest and handcuffed, his time on the lam at an end. He knew the jig was up. His 6 days of evading capture were over. Once in custody, Raphael suddenly became cooperative, confessing fully to Kimberly's murder. He laid out the cold-blooded details, the jealous rage that drove him to savagely stab her multiple times as she lay in his bed. Raphael admitted he had panicked in the aftermath, trying unsuccessfully to clean up the bloody scene before fleeing into the night. Along with his confession, solid forensic evidence continued mounting against Raphael. The blood-smeared shoe prints in the apartment matched his size and tread, and perhaps most damning, security cameras had captured him and Kimberly arriving together at the building that fateful night. Hours later, Raphael appears again, alone this time, calmly leaving the premises in the darkness after Kimberly had been slaughtered inside. Thanks to the coordinated efforts of police units across municipal and national borders, the net had closed in around Raphael before he could escape Brazilian soil. For 6 tense days, it seemed he might evade capture and trial, shattering any hope of justice for Kimberly's loved ones. But ultimately, he was tracked down and forced to face consequences. a testament to determined police work. While it hardly erased the tragedy and loss of Kimberly's senseless murder, capturing Raphael provided some small solace. Kimberly's family could rest knowing the man who took her life would now pay a price, rather than roaming free somewhere far across the globe, living in impunity under an assumed name. He would serve as an example that justice comes for domestic abusers, even when they flee the scene. Raphael's violent rampage ended where it began, in Manaus, but the ripples of his brutal crime will spread far and wide, underscoring the need to protect victims and prevent such tragedies before it's too late. By banding together, may we build a society where no more Raphaels can shatter lives and escape unscathed. For Kimberly, and all those like her, our work continues. With her blood still crusted under his nails, Raphael signed the detailed confession, sealing his guilt. His toxic jealousy and possessiveness had destroyed the woman who once loved him in a frenzied explosion of violence. Raphael was charged with femicide, the deliberate killing of a woman due to her gender, and placed in pretrial detention. But Kimberly's family wanted full justice. Still reeling from her senseless murder, their pain was compounded when Nayla's breast cancer rapidly spread, and Raphael's own father, distraught over his son's monstrous crime, committed suicide by throwing himself in front of a train. The full trial began in October 2021. Prosecutors painted Raphael as an abusive and controlling domestic partner who had long emotionally tortured Kimberly before the brutal murder. The defense tried to pin it on a supposed crime of passion, but had little evidence to support this claim. On October 28, 2021, after 2 days of trial, Raphael was sentenced to 14 years in prison for Kimberly's murder, a sentence her family protested as far too lenient. But they drew some comfort knowing this dangerous predator was off the streets, unable to hurt other women. Still, 14 years felt trivial compared to the lifetime Kimberly lost. She should have been graduating from university, competing again for Miss Brazil, and realizing her dreams. Instead, her bright future was coldly snatched away at just 22 years old by the man who had claimed to love her. For Kimberly's loved ones, the sentence brought little relief. Raphael's jealousy and rage had cut short a life brimming with promise and talent. Kimberly's dreams died with her in that bathroom on the night of May 11, 2020. She never got the chance to finish her degree, build her practice, or compete for Miss Brazil. Her shining future was erased by one man's twisted passion. Kimberly's senseless murder reveals the tragic costs of domestic violence and controlling relationships. Even as her killer serves his time, her case stands as a cautionary tale. May Kimberly's spirit live on through efforts to prevent such tragedies and give voice to others suffering in silence. For women nationwide, the fight for justice and freedom continues. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more true crime episodes.